Hi everyone, today let's talk about oil prices affecting markets. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So S&P jumps 1% and the Dow added 100 points as oil prices started to go a little bit lower. You can see SPY up nearly 1, NASDAQ 1.5%, Dow 0.3, and what they're pointing to here for markets today is oil futures dropping 4.6% in a day, which is a big move. These have been rising as the Israeli-Iran conflict has continued to heat up, but markets are starting to price in a little bit of a cooler reaction, not expecting this wider conflict to spread, and based on that, the energy sector moved down 2.6%, Marathon dropping 7.7%, Valero dropping 5.3%, so cooling on the energy front allowed these other stocks to rally. NVDA 4%, Broadcom 3%, Mag 7 companies rising 1%, and Palo Alto jumping 5%. So is this actually the reason why, or is this just something to point to while markets are kind of choppy over the last couple days? Remains hard to say. Oil futures dropping 4.6 is a big number, but I'm not sure that that's driving the major moves in the market right now. Moving over to fear and greed, you can see fear and greed's at a 72, up from a 70 yesterday, continuing to chop here, but did go up today. Back into greed, strength and breadth really haven't moved for a while. We are seeing breadth roll to the downside a little bit, but it's still an extreme greed. Put call ratio has flattened at 0.7. Volatility did pull back just slightly, but remaining pretty elevated at a 21.5. Safe haven demand still elevated as well at extreme greed, and junk bonds still not moving in regular fear. Moving over to the economic calendar, you can see Atlanta Fed GDP came in at 3.2, good number there. 3-year note auction 3.87, about 0.3% higher, so pretty big jump there. It'll be interesting to see how that plays in tomorrow's market. We do have that 10-year note auction coming out tomorrow at 1300. Atlanta Fed GDP 3.2 for Q3. And then, of course, we do have the FOMC minutes coming out at 1400 tomorrow. And then if you hold anything into the close, you do have CPI core and headline coming out at 8:30 in the morning on Thursday. Moving over to Max Pain, price stepped up quite a bit, 1%, just like we talked about, 573 back up to that level. Max Pain for the Friday still 567, has not moved a whole lot. You can see Max Pain for today was a little bit lower. For tomorrow, again, about 1% lower. We'll see if that comes to fruition, but the big number that I'm concerned about is that Friday number down at 567. So it looks like a little bit of choppiness in here until we get into next week. 10 days from now, 2.3% lower. 14 days from now, 7.5% lower. Very concerned about those numbers, but for now, we're still okay. Moving over to the charts, looking at the S&Ps, you can see we got that big up candle, so we're calling this a touch here now. Very, very close to the level. I think on the daily chart yesterday, we said it was at the level, held the level. On the hourly, it was slightly below. Momentum stepping back towards bullish, so you got a little bit of choppiness. Based on this move, you should expect a push back up to the trend line here, which is up around 577.15. That's what we expected after the Friday session yesterday, but clearly choppy price action. Still cannot get above the highs from the 26th, 27th of September, so still in that same zone. But right now, you would expect about a 1% up move, hit that trend line there, and then see what happens. Maybe we overthrow it and break down. Remember, this is a medium-term bearish structure, but short-term is still bullish, and that has not broken quite yet. And then looking at the short time frames here on the hourly chart, you can see the low is still 565.17. Almost touched that yesterday, pushing up towards the upper level, 574.71. That is your all-time high here on the S&Ps, and really that hasn't changed. We touched the highs from the Friday session, rejected a little bit from there. Would not shock me if we just kind of chopped here sideways for a little bit. You got this trend line here, like we talked about, did close below it yesterday, pushed right back to it here pre-market, and then rallied through into the session. Momentum starting to fade on the hourly. Wouldn't shock me to see a little bit more downside. Touch the level, maybe get the continuation from there, but momentum seems to be fading on that hourly chart. Overall though, medium term eventually will break lower. Short term still bullish for me. Moving over to the Tasty charts here on the 4-hour, you can see we did get that rally through right to the level you can see here. Not a ton of volume as expected. We really haven't seen any major volume since back here on the first of the month, which was those big down candles. Still below this ATR resistance at 575.95, so still bearish conditions. Lowest ATR band starting to trend up just a little bit, but upper band still flat here. So really no change from yesterday. We ended up holding that level like we said. This was a zone of support. If it broke, we were looking for here. If it held, we were looking for a push up, and sure enough, we did get that push up. Moving over to the NASDAQ here, you can see the structure that we're in. We talked about this short-term bottom that we were forming kind of here. I added a midline, so we did get above that midline here yesterday. We've been kind of chopping on it. it's been relevant. We've seen big pushes through it, rejections from it, so it's been fairly relevant here, but we did push through it pretty powerfully today. Based on this, you would look for a test of that next high, which is about 0.7 higher. Still looking to get that gap fill up to these candles here. That would be about 1.5% higher, and then based on this, a push to the trend is possible. It's around 3.75% higher. That would be to all-time highs, up around 508.37. Momentum stepped back to bullish, but it's been really choppy, very little momentum, clearly not doing much of anything. We've been in the same trading range since back here on the 26th. Really, we got very close to here on the 19th, and we've been kind of sideways choppy since then. A couple of fake out moves, fake out break here, fake out break down here, and now we're getting a little bit of a continuation up. Based on the break of the trend, that means we should be in a little bit more bullish conditions going into tomorrow's session. Maybe we're finally getting that follow through from the Friday that we thought we were going to get on the Monday. And then looking at those short time frames here on the hourly, you can see that low that we had. Talked about that yesterday. Finally got that to populate here today. Then we got a push right through my level here. Held this level, pushed through it in the pre-market, pushed towards the next one at 486.84. And then we broke that level about mid-session, held the test, and then got the continuation into the end of the session. So based on this, again, slightly bullish up to 492. We're in this zone now on that closing basis. So looking for a little bit more move, a little bit more than $3 of potential upside. The momentum is fading here slightly, but I would be looking for a test of the trend, hold that around here, 487.95, and then my level 486.84. As long as those levels hold, we should be in for a little bit more upside in tomorrow's and maybe the day after session, depending on what we see out of the FOMC minutes. Moving over to the 4-hour chart here for the Tasty charts on the Qs, you can see that 89 EMA was your support. We ended up holding that again with the rally here today. So currently the 89 is sitting at 481.32. Important to have all of these trends on here. That was the trend that held multiple tests at that level, and then we got the push up from there. Still technically bearish conditions here. ATR trailing stop at 491.10. I would expect to at least get a touch of that level. You can see lowest ATR bands trending a little bit higher, just like on the SPY. Upper band still flat, so not super convincing. Again, we've been in the same kind of price range since back here on the 19th. Same trading range, really not giving any clear direction quite yet. Moving over to the Russell here, we got a basically flat day, 0.05, held the levels in here after those tests. We've been testing this trend line here. In fact, let's go full screen so you can see that a little better. We've been holding this level here. You can see the rally up, the retest. We're holding in here. If this gets above 218.13, I'll get more bullish, but so far it has not held that level. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish, so still mixed signals. We have a short-term bearish move, holding some trend support, momentum still bearish. As long as the support holds, we should get a reversal and a push up, but those momentum and RSI indicators are giving me a little bit of pause. And then looking at the Dow, really didn't move a lot. Inside candle, 0.28. Again, continuing to hold that 418.38 level. Momentum bearish, RSI still bearish. Still can't get back up to this trend line. Let's go ahead and extend that out. Still looking for some resistance up around 423, but support is at 418.38. Moving over to Super Micro and YINN. We've been talking about these for a little bit here. So Super Micro touched the level, did get the swing up to 48.89. Couldn't hold that move, ended up down 5%. I still think this is going to go. This is probably just an initial rejection. You can see this is still very much a medium-term downtrend. But if it can get above 48.89, I do think that there's a lot more in it, potentially up to that 63 area. And then China finally pulling back here a little bit, 30%. The run has been massive, so this 30% doesn't really feel like a lot. From top to bottom is nearly 200% on this. So 30% lower doesn't feel bad at all. More like a buying opportunity. I still think that this is going to get bought up once again. I've been talking about how these Chinese stocks have been super oversold over the past couple of days or weeks, and I still think that this is going to go higher eventually. Just in the short term here, we're getting a little bit of a pullback. We said it was overbought, got all the way up to an 85.5, 82.82 before we saw this pullback here. So overbought for a long period of time. Short-term pullback. I do think it'll get bought up eventually. Be patient here. We don't know how much it's going to pull back, but right now it is showing some pullback. And then here we have FUTU and Hood. I did get asked about these two. This is clearly a Chinese company. I don't know anything about the company, but you can see it's following that Chinese pattern. Again, I do think this is going to get bought up at some point, hold a higher low, and then get the continuation. It's just super extended. You can see here it got up to a 91.6 on the RSI. So just very extended. It's basically doubled, 56.54 up to 110. So doubled to there. The high is up around 130. It's just really extended. And then looking at Hood, this is the first real structure we've seen on Hood. Let's go full screen on that. You can see it was basically straight down here, consolidation for a long time, broke out here around $13, and since then it's been on a run all the way up to $25.60, so it's almost doubled from there after the breakout. It's in this structure. The trend line resistance is up around $26.63. If that breaks, you got some resistance up here around $32, $33 in there somewhere. Got some big volume here today, nearly 40 million shares traded. That's about 4 times as many as normal, so you would expect some follow through off that kind of a push. You have a clear consolidation at a level pushing through, and this does look pretty bullish over the medium term, at least based on the structure. Clear breakdown, clearly got bought up, held support, moving up. Would want to see a break of this trend, and then, like I said, up to that 32, 33 area. The other thing worth noting is that it is pretty overbought already at a 71.76, so maybe based on that you get a rejection, another higher low, and then a continuation up. But that volume can absolutely push markets up pretty dramatically, even through those overbought conditions. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. Apple up about 2%, got back above 224.36, so we're back into this trading range. Fake out breakout here yesterday. Bearish momentum, bearish RSI. Got a bit of a swing up back into this consolidation. If it rejects and pushes back down, still bearish. As long as it holds in here, still neutral. And then if it breaks above 230.28, then we get back into bullish conditions. Really no change there. And then looking at Microsoft, I still like this to the downside. Inside candle, so it found some support at that 413.36 level. Broke it yesterday. Thought we would see a little bit more dramatic down move. But now we got a step to bullish on the MACD. So you have to respect this as maybe a higher low. Going to push up to the trend line here around 426, 427 in that zone. Certainly a possibility. And then once we get the rejection, maybe we get a little bit more follow through to the downside. I still think it's going to reject. This is probably just a short-term rally if it does have some follow through to it. It's certainly possible that it doesn't and that it actually fades a little bit sooner. But overall, medium term, still very much a downtrend. Short term might show some signs of life. Moving over to Tesla. Tesla continuing to find strength at that 21 and VWAP. So support 242.82. Same thesis really. If it holds that level, we're in good shape. If it breaks down, looking for 232.57. Momentum bearish, RSI still bearish. And then looking at NVIDIA, this continues to do what we thought it was going to do. We got the breakout here yesterday, got the touch, rallied right back to that level, got the breakout here. So your next price target would be up around 138.30. As long as 130 holds, it's basically flat after hours. And then behind that, you have the all-time high sitting at 140.76. See if we can get there once again. Right now, super bullish here on NVIDIA. It's been a strong run since that 21 EMA held, about 15%. Quick look at Amazon and Google. You can see Amazon did find a little bit of support. We're still looking for a touch of that 55 EMA, which is sitting at 179.51. And my support level still here at 181.41. So we got back to that level, held a little bit of support. Momentum and RSI are still bearish. Again, this still looks similar to Microsoft. I still think it's going to go lower in the medium term, but short term might get a retest of that 21 EMA. So slight rally up into the 188 area and then reject from there. Certainly a possibility. Right now it's holding support. And as long as 181.41 holds, it's still bullish. And then looking at Alphabet here, again, trend line, tested it yesterday, trend line again here today. Momentum and RSI continue to trend towards bearish, but as long as 164.50 holds, we're in good shape to the bull side. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, you can see discretionaries continue to rally up here, pushed right back to the level 197.14, and just looking at the parity, you can see staples selling off. So there's still a little bit of risk acceptance here in markets. People are still willing to take some risk. Staples selling off and discretionaries rallying. If it breaks out here, we should see markets push a little bit. 200.53 would be the next level here on discretionaries. Moving over to oil and gas and technology. Oil and gas, you can see the big sell-off, 2.75, momentum stepping to bearish. We talked about the 200 being resistance, and then it gapped down and fell. So looking for a little bit more pullback. 21 EMA at 133. I would like to see that level hold. I think we're probably going to get there at least, and then we'll see what happens after that. And that does fit with a retest of the RSI and then see what happens. I think it's going to hold. I think we're still going to see this go higher eventually. The structure still looks like consolidation, initial push. I think it will go, which is part of why I was a little bit hesitant on that article today. I think oil was just hitting some technicals, a little bit overbought in the short term, waiting for a pullback. We'll see if it holds. And then technology got back above this trend line here. Let's take a closer look at that. You can see I had a big, long, bullish structure, and it's still within that structure for sure. Tested some support levels, tested this midpoint. Now it looks like we're just barely going to break above there. We'll see if it can do it, if we can hold those levels. If it does, technology can push. A lot of upside potential to that 244 area, which would be right back to these all-time highs. I don't know if it's going to do that, but momentum and RSI look pretty good here, at least in the short term. Moving over to RIOT and Marathon. RIOT continuing to be the outperformer here, pushing towards that 878 level. It was completely flat on the day, but you can see Marathon was down 1%, and that's after the very bullish day prior. Momentum still bullish, RSI still bullish. I think this is still going to go. I think it's got a little bit more in it. Marathon not doing much of anything, still within this consolidation range. Moving over to Breadth. We did get a slight retracement, but all we did was retest those resistance levels after the breakdown yesterday. My concern here is that we're going to get a move like this. Breakdown, retest, consolidation candle, massive move down on the following candle, and then we get a little bit of a continuation higher. So if that happens, still some bearishness potentially to come. 36.60 was what I was looking for. I still think that's certainly a possibility. So something to consider. Breadth maybe not going with markets in the short term. Maybe technology is carrying it higher. And then similarly here on 50-day, slight retracement, didn't even quite touch the level at 68.66. High of day was 68.52. Momentum and RSI are still bearish. Moving over to yields, these have been pushing markets around a little bit more, so let's keep talking about it. Yields finally starting to sell off just a little bit, stepping towards bearish momentum on both of these. We're still above support here on the 10-year, 3.97. It's just at that 4 level. Similarly here on the 2-year, getting very close to that 4.1 area. Kind of mixed signals, to be honest. This is resistance, so you would expect it to reject from here and sell off a little bit. For the 2-year, 10-year, it's back above support, so hold the level, potentially push up to the 200, which is currently sitting at 4.17. We'll see how that plays out in tomorrow's auction. Moving over to the dollar, going to be interesting to see how this plays. We've had 2 days in a row of sideways choppy action. Tomorrow we get the FOMC minutes. That's going to have a big impact on the dollar for sure. We'll see how that plays out. If they're a little bit dovish, we could see the dollar sell off. If they're a little more hawkish and willing to hold yields up a little bit more, that'll give strength to the dollar, which will probably be bearish for equities. Moving over to JNK and TLT, both of these finding a little bit of support. Interesting to see that. So you got TLT touching that 96.51 level, holding support there. Momentum and RSI still bearish, but finding some support for sure. TLT almost touching that 200 SMA at 94.28. Low of day was 94.34, so just barely missed it by about 5 cents, and then ended up positive on the day, 0.17. So first positive day here in 4 days, and really it's been a lot longer than that. You can see a couple of doji choppy action in here, but it's been basically falling since 17 September. So first bullish candle, really. We'll see if it has any more in it. Moving over to the VIX, you can see the VIX is still staying elevated at a 21.42, still hovering at that 21.5 level. That was the initial price target. We touched it yesterday. We'll see if it holds up in this range. We do have some trend support around 20.7. Momentum and RSI are still bullish. Could be just an initial test. We get another slight continuation and then we get a sell, or we could sell right off. It's hard to say. This is a zone of resistance, so certainly a possibility we just reject from here and markets find a little bit of strength. Or we hold that higher low, markets find a dead cat bounce, and then we get a bigger spike up into the 28.89 area. And that could be the kind of bottoming price action that we need from markets. Final kind of sell off to establish a local bottom and then see what happens after that. Moving over to my accounts, you can see I made a decent amount of money. About $400, pretty good. I made some moves really aggressively early in the session because I saw we were getting some buying action. We broke those levels. And once we did on the Qs, I rolled out and up pretty aggressive to 485. For the end of the week, that is $5.57 credit. So that puts my max profit there at $490.57. So that gives me about another $1.50 of potential upside here on the Qs. It's basically flat in the after hours. Doesn't give me a ton of room, but I still have some protection if we do see a slight pullback. And I can always roll out to the Monday to be a little more aggressive if I need to. And then the IWM was basically flat, 9 cents here. So all I did was roll out that put to the next day, 464 cents at 217, collected most of that profit on that position. So pretty good day on that, and still staying in the game as long as that support holds. And like I said, if we do see a break of that 218 area, then I can start to put on a little bit bigger position. But for now, the put is all I want. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of the geopolitical risk and the current movement in oil. Is that driving markets, or is it just a technical excuse? Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.